Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
You know, AC about the storm around 25 years. Fino a quando si vende se sono di questo anno però in generale questo numero di Krishna, dopo finanza, da quando io dico Glory. Wait.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Om Gyanatamrandhasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganath Raghunath Narvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Prajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahaganath Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jigapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavareshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Tonight we're looking at 14.26 through 15.9. 14.26. And we can read these together. These verses. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samiti yaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Translation: one who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Text 27. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasyaik antikasya cha. Translation: and I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness, and which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. Chapter 15, text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Mulam Edha Shakham Ashvatam Prahur Avyayam Chandam Si Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Saveda Vit. Translation: the Blessed Lord said, there is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Text 2. Adhashchordvam praritas tasya shakha guna pravridha vishaya pravalaha adhashchamulanyanu santatani karmanu bandini manushaloke. Translation: the branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Text 3 through 4. Na rupam asyeha tato palabhyate nanto nachadir nacha sampratishta ashvatamenam suvirudhamulam asanga shastrena dridena chitva tatapadam tat parimargitivyam yasmin gitana nivartanti bhuya tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatta pravriti prashrita purani. Translation: the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. So doing, one must seek that place from which, having once gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything has begun and in whom everything is abiding since time immemorial. Text 5. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adyatmanija vinivrita kamaha dvandver vimukta sukha dukkha samyer gachan jamudha param avyayam tat. Translation: one who is free from illusion, false prestige, and false association, who understands the eternal, who is done with material lusts, and is freed from the duality of happiness and distress, and who knows how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attains to that eternal kingdom. Text 6. Natad basayate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yad gatva na nivartante taddama paramamama. Translation: that abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never returns to this material world. Text 7. Mamaiva mamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shastan indriyani pakritistani karshati. Translation: the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Text 8. Shariram yad avapnoti yachchap yukramatishvaraha grihit vaitani samyati vayurgandhan ishvashatna. Translation: the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Text 9. Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam grahnam evacha adhishtaya manashchayam vishayan upasevate. Translation: the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, and nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Back to chapter 14, text 26. And I'll read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Purport. This verse is a reply to Arjuna's third question. What is the means of attaining to the transcendental position? As explained before, the material world is acting under the spell of the modes of material nature. One should not be disturbed by the activities of the modes of nature. Instead of putting his consciousness into such activities, he may transfer his consciousness to Krishna activities. Krishna activities are known as Bhakti Yoga, always acting for Krishna. This includes not only Krishna, but his different plenary expansions such as Rama and Narayan. He has innumerable expansions. One who is engaged in the service of any of the forms of Krishna or of his plenary expansions is considered to be transcendentally situated. One should also note that all the forms of Krishna are fully transcendental, blissful, full of knowledge, and eternal. Such personalities of Godhead are omnipotent and omniscient, and they possess all transcendental qualities. So if one engages himself in the service of Krishna or his plenary expansions with unfailing determination, although these modes of material nature are very difficult to overcome, he can overcome them easily. This is already explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature. To be in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service means to acquire the equality of Krishna. The Lord says that his nature is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, and the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, as gold particles are part of a gold mine. Thus the living entity's spiritual position is as good as gold, as good as Krishna in quality. The difference of individuality continues. Otherwise, there is no question of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual person. Otherwise, there is no meaning to Bhakti Yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus, the qualification is to become Brahman, or freed from all material contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, Brahmayava san Brahmapyati. One can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as individual soul. So, becoming transcendental to these modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, sattva, raja, tamas, these modes that are determining, we're under these modes and determining our next body. You know, a lot of people say, do you call yourselves Hindu or Christian, or what do you call yourself? It's kind of silly. If reincarnation is real, which it is, how silly is it to call oneself by these temporary designations? You know, it actually shows a little bit of potential ignorance to call oneself some of these things, because we just call ourselves like devotees of God. We're trying to be devotees of God because life after life, no matter what we call ourselves, no matter what our bodies look like, no matter what the conditions, we can try to be devotees and servants of God. And that transcends any material designation: American, Indian, Hindu, Christian. Don't you want to become more than just a religion that wants to prove its superiority over another religion or something? We don't want to do that. And so if one doesn't believe in reincarnation, it might be hard to wrap one's mind around this concept. But if reincarnation is real, which it is, like I said, then we are by nature transcendental to whatever is happening in this world today, because the world has been existing for so long, and we have been existing for so long as well, through so many births, animal births, maybe demigod births and demon births, and because we wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna. It's like this analogy of in the lion, you know, he says we're part and parcel of Krishna. Just like in the jungle, you may have the lion, the king of the jungle, and that's like Krishna. And then you may have like a jackal. We're more like a jackal, you know, creating disturbances, or just kind of like not the nicest animal. But then you've got the king of the jungle, the lion. And so the lion and the jackal are both animal. They're both animal, but one is by nature the king. And so that is like the lion and the jackal. one who does not fall down in one who engages in full devotional service, who does not, that means dedicating everything you do towards Krishna, working for Krishna and thinking about Krishna, remembering his activities and appearances. And, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvataha tyaktvadeham punarjanma nyeti mam eti so Arjuna. One who remembers my transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, after leaving this body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance. That means we're going to be tested. And that means we want to pass that test, because it goes on to say, this person at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So we want to transcend the modes of material nature. We want to get out of the gunk of the material world. That's why we're here. That's one thing that led us to closer to Krishna consciousness. We were very dissatisfied with the world and with so many things about it. It didn't feel like it resonated with our hearts. Our hearts no longer could just go along with it. We became very dissatisfied. And so luckily, by contact with the Vaishnav, we made it here. And we want to get out of the yucky modes of material nature that have been holding us down for so long and are determining our future body if we're locked underneath them. So engaging in full devotional service and not falling down in any circumstance. Those are just two things. So we're going to be tested, and we have to be ready for the test. We're trying to build up our armor by chanting the Lord's names and by participating in devotional activities. We are building up our armor, and through association, and where we spend our time. If we spend our time mostly in a nightclub, then it's just going to rub off on us. 5 nights a week, a very busy nightclub with lots of bustling talking and activity and people that really don't care about spirituality or finding God. It's naturally just going to rub off on us, and so where we spend our time is important. And maybe I know a lot of us out there can't stay or live at the temple 24/7, so it's even harder. Best thing is to try to live at the temple or engage with the temple as much as possible. But some of us are out there and we're trying to be business owners, or we're working for Amazon, and we feel like we're kind of locked into spending our time with people that that may not be the best influence. And so we just have to counteract that. Maya's going to keep doubling down, and so we have to keep doubling down. If I can put an earbud in and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, you just have to keep building up your armor, keep kind of battling Maya. Keep battling these 3 modes, because every time you make a few steps, sure, Maya's going to be scheming for ways to challenge us a little bit. But Krishna is also protecting us. So the more we go deeper into Krishna consciousness, Krishna's kind of saying, not so much, lay off a little bit. And so protection is such a beautiful thing that Krishna can grant. He can grant us all protection, and he does not want his devotees to be in fear. We don't have to fear. And another analogy with not being touched by the modes is like the lotus flower. The lotus flower grows in water, but yet it doesn't touch the water. So that's how we can try to transcend the modes. We can we'll still be in the material world, but we can be transcending it at the same time. We don't have to get dragged down into it. No matter how difficult the situation is, you can just remember Krishna, and he's watching out for you. He's got a plan for you. You are his, and he is yours. So rest assured, he's got a plan for you. You just have to submit to the process. Bhakti Yoga is about submitting a little bit, submitting and saying, I can't control, I'm not the controller. I've tried and tried, but we submit and say, I want to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And individuality continues. You're never going to lose your individuality. Bhakti Yoga can't really exist without the Lord and someone to perform, to attempt to serve the Lord. And that is Bhakti Yoga. One who surrenders unto Krishna at once surmounts the influence of the modes of material nature, he says. Yeah. So to serve, you have to be situated on the same kind of platform. You have to be somewhat in that mindset. You have to, if you're going to serve someone, you have to be somewhat close or connected to that person. If you wanted to be an assistant to Bill Gates, you would have to try to associate with Bill Gates or one of his assistants. And then, so it's kind of like that. So these are text 26 and text 14 through 27 are describing the characteristics of a person who has transcended the three modes of material nature. Such a person is not affected by happiness, distress, honor, dishonor, or any other dualities of this world. That means if it snows or if it's sunny and nice, that means we're not affected. We do our duties. We keep doing our duties, and we get over ourselves a little bit and get moving. Sometimes if we're in a position where we're having a hard time getting going, we have to remember I cannot be affected by these modes. Let me keep moving. Let me act in Krishna consciousness. What's Krishna's plan today for me? And let me stand up with enthusiasm and try to help execute that plan. Because Krishna does have a plan. Every plan you see is going on, is going on with Krishna's somewhat sanction, because nothing happens in this world without Krishna's sanction ultimately. So the devotee is always engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, who is the source of the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual effulgence that pervades the entire creation. Text 27. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness, and which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. So Krishna is always having fun. He isn't affected by the ups and downs of the material world. He's always in bliss. He's always having fun. And I was thinking about, imagine doing something fun with your devotee friends, and everyone else is having a great time. But if we're having fun, I would call that the mode of goodness in that situation. And if we're just neutral, that would be kind of the mode of passion. But if we're just down and we can't get over ourselves, I would call that the mode of ignorance a little bit, because Krishna is in this bliss mode. And so, if he's in that bliss mode, I want to try to. I don't want to. I want to try to match that a little bit. That's text 27. Shishi Gornatai, Kijai. 27. So a soul. The modes compete with one another for supremacy in an individual. So the modes are fighting all the time and trying to control the individual. They're fighting internally. One transcends the modes by knowing all in this world takes place under the modes, and Krishna's activities are transcendental to the modes. So just remember, all in this world takes place under the modes of nature, and Krishna's activities are transcendental to the modes. Knowing Krishna's opulent position as our maintainer on both the cosmic and personal levels, and compiler of Vedanta and Vedas, should attract us to him. A soul can transcend these modes through devotional service. So if we perform devotional service by going to the artis, by chanting the Lord's names, by chanting the Maha Mantra, by taking prasadam, by giving Krishna consciousness to another jiva, we can transcend these modes through that. Then Krishna begins speaking of the upside down banyan tree. The Blessed Lord said, "There is a banyan tree which has its root upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." So here in verses 1 through 3, comparing the material world to a banyan tree, the tree is nourished by the three modes of nature. So the three modes of nature are kind of watering this tree and helping it grow, and has various types of fruits, flowers, and leaves representing the different kinds of enjoyment and suffering in this world. This tree is very difficult to cut down because it is not perceived clearly. One has to use the weapon of detachment and the knowledge of the Vedas to sever the root of this tree. And we can actually look at a plate 35 applies here. So it says, "There is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches down." And I'll read a little bit more about that plate. 15:1 through 3. Krishna and his eternal consort Radharani are shown in their eternal abode, Goloka Vrindavan, at the top there. The upside down tree below them is the banyan tree, representing the material world, which is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. The demigods are on the top branches, and the human beings are on the middle branches, and the animals are on the lower branches. On the right, a man is disentangling himself from the tree by cutting it with the weapon of detachment. So on the right, a man is disentangling himself from the tree by cutting it with the weapon of detachment. And can you see the man cutting the tree? Yeah. There's a lot in this picture. Beautiful picture. The Vedic hymns, pious acts. Down there it says, what is the word at the bottom? Oh, maybe that's not a word. It looks like line. Oh, it's a lines on a lizard tail, I guess. Yeah. Okay, I thought that was a word. Text 2. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Purport. The description of the banyan tree is further explained here. Its branches are spread in all directions. In the lower parts, there are variegated manifestations of living entities, such as human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc. These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas on the upper parts are higher forms of living entities, the demigods, Gandharvas, fairies, and many other higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes a tract is very green. Similarly, where the modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested in that proportion. The twigs of the tree are considered to be the sense objects. By development of the different modes of nature, we develop different senses, and by the senses, we enjoy different varieties of sense objects. The source of the senses, the ears, the nose, eyes, etc., is considered to be the upper twigs, tuned to the enjoyment of different sense objects. The leaves are sound, form, touch, the sense objects. The roots, which are subsidiary, are the byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense enjoyment. Thus we develop attachment and aversion. The tendencies toward piety and impiety are considered to be the secondary roots, spreading in all directions. The real root is from Brahmaloka, and the other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in the upper planetary systems, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma or fruitive activities for promotion. This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. Tuned, I like that phrase, tuned to the enjoyment of different sense objects. Because we can actually get tuned into different enjoyments of different sense gratification. And once you're tuned in, you tend to want to stay on that tune. And so it's like a frequency. So we're tuning into a whole different frequency, you know. When I was a child, I would go to sleep with the clock radio, with the radio on. And at night, you can pick up stations, or at least you used to be able to pick up. I was living kind of out in the country a little bit. You could pick up stations from a long way away. And I could pick up a station from Chicago. You know, I was living here in Kansas City, outside of Kansas City a little bit. But I could pick up a radio station from Chicago. So if you're tuned in to a very powerful frequency, you can tune in at almost anywhere, and the what was the other analogy? I had something on that. Sorry about that. Speaking of trees, a quick story from Radhanath Swami. He tells the story about going to visit these redwood tree forests in California, the redwood trees, how they stand so tall. These are the tallest, oldest trees anywhere, really, right? And so he was there with an associate, and there happened to be a tour guide coming by, a tour. So he couldn't help but listen in a little bit. And the tour guide said, "Do you know how these roots, how do these trees stand so tall?" He said, "Wouldn't you think that the roots go down very, very deep?" He said, "Actually, these roots don't go down so deep. They are actually, this soil in California here, it's actually loose and gravelly. It's not such good soil. But these trees in California, these giant redwood trees, their roots intertwine with each other. And so even a young tree will start to reach out its root, and then eventually one of the older, bigger trees will grab hold, and then they become intertwined. And so they derive strength from each other. And Radhanath Swami always makes a beautiful comparison that's like the devotees. We can really get a lot of strength from each other. We should be like that. Those redwood trees. And of course, the air doesn't smell good or bad. It's the air is carrying the aromas. And so texts, and then text 3 through 4. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. So doing, one must seek that place from which, having once gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything has begun, and in whom everything is abiding since time immemorial. So here in these texts, explaining how one can attain the supreme destination, which is beyond this material world, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul. One who reaches that abode never returns to this world of birth and death. That abode is self-illuminated and free from all miseries. Text 5, one who is free from illusion, false prestige, and false association, who understands the eternal, who is done with material lusts and is freed from the duality of happiness and distress, and who knows how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attains to that eternal kingdom. Text 6, that abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never returns to this material world. And I had another analogy about staying aloof, being in the world but not being of it. Have you ever seen how a scientist can put on, if they're working in a very dangerous situation, they can put their hands in these gloves where they actually go into the next room, so their gloves are actually built into the wall, so they can work with a very toxic object by putting their hands in these gloves, which are actually going into another room, and then they can work with the object. So a devotee is kind of like that. Text 7 through 9 describe the nature of the individual soul, who is a fragmental part of the Supreme Lord. The soul is eternal, but he is entangled in the material body, which is made of the 5 gross elements and the 3 subtle elements. The soul accepts different types of bodies according to his desires and karma, and he experiences happiness and distress through the 6 senses, including the mind. So it's like, why, if someone really wants to fly, or if someone really wants to go swimming with the fish way low, why put on scuba gear, or why put on some sort of flying apparatus when you can simply just you can get that birth in the next birth? You could easily swim. You could just be a fish. If you want to swim so bad, just be a fish. They have a special body that's specially for living in the water. And the birds have a special body, especially for flying. And so you can get a different body like that. But the best body would be a body that's perfectly suited to serve Sri Krishna in his eternal abode. That would be best case scenario. And no more millions of births, no more struggling, no more competition, no more competing with Krishna, no more putting ourselves in the center, and everyone's on the same page. It's really a beautiful thing. Text 7, the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. Text 8, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. And text 9, the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, and nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Purport. In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure, like water. But if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure, but consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When, therefore, one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or one of many other forms, for there are 8,400,000 species. So we have a chance in this human body to make spiritual advancement the way that the animals cannot make. And who knows, if we're not careful, our next life may be animal body and have to work our way up again. So we have to be very careful and take this chance, this matchless gift that Srila Prabhupada is trying to give us. We have to take it and live it. And consciousness is pure. Krishna is pure. He is the all pure one. He has no contamination. He is completely beyond the three modes of material nature. And he is the smallest of the small, the oldest of the old. He plays the transcendental flute. He dances with the gopis. He plays with the cowherd boys. And he takes care of the cows. He loves the cows. He eats at the home of his parents, Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. And so many nice qualities. We're learning all about Krishna. And we're learning all about the secrets of life. I mean, how wonderful it is that we found this. You know, think about when you were a child, if you didn't grow up in Krishna consciousness, you know, how hard was it to find this? How lucky are we to have found this, you know? It's like Plinko, you know, like it's just so random sometimes how things go. So we're out of that random, you know, some people just go wherever the wind blows. So we're outside of that now. So we have to stay situated. That would be the very best thing, is to stay situated in this Krishna consciousness. Will there be ups and downs? Yes. Yes. And you just have to stay on. You just have to keep a hold of that rope. We've been out in the ocean drowning and someone's come and given us a rope, you know, and so we just have to take that rope and hold on to it for dear life. And we're being pulled in like that. So we just have to stay on board, you know, and stay in Krishna consciousness no matter the ups and downs. Krishna has brought us here. But no matter what, no matter how much spirituality and all the progress you make, don't worry, you will keep it. You get to keep it in your transcendental spiritual bank account, life after life. And so we're trying to build up our spiritual bank account. And so hopefully we can not have to take birth again, and we can live forever in Goloka Vrindavan. And that would be the nicest, most beautiful thing. So Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai. Srila Prabhupada.